Right, I'll give you a couple of short stories. The first one is called A Keeper's Checkered Past. These stories are by John Humphreys. Dick Townsend was not born a keeper, like many before, and since he started on the wrong side of the covers, but it was to prove a good grounding for him when later he became a distinguished and fearless poacher-catcher. It's an old saying that poachers make the best gamekeepers, although Dick saw the light at a youthful age. Now, between the ages of 12 and 14, I did a bit of poaching myself, climbing down the drainpipe when my poor mum and dad thought I was in bed, fast asleep. This is where I had an early start at nightlife. I could use one of three things to get my prey: the air gun, if I was well out of the way, my catapult at certain places, and my favourite of all, the bow and arrow, which made no sound at all. Many a time I have taken a pheasant less than 100 yards from the keeper's house, and him none the wiser. However, I had to make sure that the wind was in the right direction so that his dogs did not get my scent. One dark night, I had to come home by road. In our village, they used to hold whist drives before the war. These would run from 7:30 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. and then there would be dancing from 10 p.m. until 1:30 a.m. My mother and father took part in these. My dad on the door and my mum helping with refreshments, which meant they were never home before midnight, and this gave me a chance to poach without worrying about being missed. I left my house at 8:30 and took the old route through the gardens and over the park to one of the outlying woods. I noticed it was quite misty as I entered the wood, and after being in it for about half an hour and getting 4 birds, I realised just how thick the fog was coming down. I managed to find my way out of the woods fairly easily, as I knew every tree and there was a ride to follow, but when I got to the park, it was a different story. There were no landmarks to help. Everything was blank, and I could see nothing. I started in the direction I thought was right, but got nowhere. I had completely lost my bearings. A lump came to my throat, and I could feel tears coming. I was really scared, not knowing what to do and wishing I had stayed at home, when suddenly I heard music. The lump in my throat disappeared and my eyes dried for now. I knew exactly where to go. The main drive to the Grange came out exactly opposite the dance hall, which was only 100 yards from my house. As soon as I knew exactly where I was, I hid my birds and came home by road. I dared not risk getting lost again, so I picked up the birds the following morning. I have often wondered how long it would have taken me to get home had there been no dance on that night. It was one of the thickest fogs I have ever known. Apart from poaching, I made quite a bit of money by catching certain wild birds alive. It all depends on the species as to what price you were paid. There were very few birds which came to our Norfolk woods and streams in those days that I could not catch. I caught them in various nets and traps, and a decoy bird would be used sometimes. My two favourites were the ride net, which would hang across a ride in a wood, and the other, best of all, was a bridge net. On the estate there were quite a few bridges over various streams which were fairly high, and you would get all sorts of birds and wildfowl flying underneath. The net I used was made like a funnel. I made it myself. I would set it over one end of the bridge and then go back to the other side for some distance, making sure to keep well away from the stream, so nothing was disturbed until I started netting downstream towards the net. I have caught mallard, teal, widgeon, coot, water rail, snipe, and the odd woodcock, kingfisher, penny wagtails, moorhens, by the score, and many other species by this method. I once caught 43 head in one sitting, 31 moorhens, 7 mallards, 2 teal, and 2 snipe. Another way of earning money was by snaring rats around the farmers' corn stacks. All my gear was homemade and came from my own ideas. I was born with a gift and was never happier than when I had the challenge to catch something. I used to go to Woolworths at Norwich and buy 3 pennies rolls of wire in the evenings, would make all my rat and mole snares. One thing led to another, and the head warrener on the estate contacted my schoolmaster to ask if he would allow me to go with him, and the other warreners on their big roughing day to shoot rabbits, and how delighted I was when he agreed. It was nothing for 3 and 4 men to shoot over 250 rabbits on one of those days. When I left school, I really wanted to be a gamekeeper, but the people on the estate were no fools and knew my reputation. However, I wanted the job so much that I plucked up courage and went to see the headkeeper. I shall never forget that day as long as I live. His wife came to the door. He was having his dinner, and I heard him shout, "Who is it?" His wife replied, "It's that boy Dick from the village." Then in a voice loud enough to wake the dead, he shouted, "Not Dick, that bloody birdcatcher." My heart dropped and I nearly ran off, but he came to the door and asked me what the hell I meant being round here. I explained to him that I wanted to be a gamekeeper and asked if he would take me on as his lad. He said, "You really take the biscuit, don't you? You've had nearly as many birds of this estate as we have, and now you come for a job." After an interval, which seemed like a week, he said with a deep sigh, "Well, I'll see if you are a man who can keep a promise. While I am keeper here, you will never poach another pheasant of this estate." I promised him I wouldn't. So he told me I could start work Monday at 12 shillings 6 pennies a week, with no time off. No one could have been more satisfied than I was. I did not want any time off, and remember well that in the first 3 years I had only 3 days off from work. What a lovely story, eh? Hope you've enjoyed that one. Right. Since we're near the river, right next to it, I thought it would be appropriate to have a salmon poaching story. This one is entitled The Salmon Poachers. Here we go. Thomas Todd is a North Country poacher, one of whose favourite pursuits was salmon poaching. Here he describes a narrow escape when his quick wittedness saved him a beating and worse. This extract was written in 1932. We had joined the beck where it meets the Tees, and were making our way steadily upstream. Naturally, we knew our business well and had already made a fair haul of salmon when we became alarmed. When fleetness of foot is necessary to make a getaway from watcher chaps, fish already caught are a hindrance. As we laid and listened, we were lucky enough to catch sight of the metal facings and helmets of the police, who were accompanied by the keepers. They had seen our light from far a distance, and were making a beeline for it, and were trusting that we would have no idea of their whereabouts, and that they would be able to drop on top of us before we could make our escape. Our difficulty was that we could not unload our catch and dash for it without betraying that we were a very few yards from where they had struck the river. Our lantern had been dashed on the outset. We lay in the bushes and felt the thudding of our hearts beating, thump, thump, thump. I had made up my mind that I was not going to leave the fish I carried because it was a case of no fish, no beer. Nor was I prepared to dump it for them to find and lay watch for us returning for it. If we were caught, we would be badly mauled. If the worst happened, we were armed with a couple of cobbles apiece, with which we hoped to flatten at least 4 of them. There was no time to lose before the police and watchers would divide and search the bank up and down, and they would be bound to find us. Above us was a pool, which was well known. My companion read my mind and whispered, "Away and make nae noise," at the foot of the pool. Away and make some noise at the foot of the pool. I had in mind is a bend where salmon have been poached than ever took a hook. The watchers would know of it also. No time must be lost in getting there, as swiftly as we could, and testing each footing lest we disturbed a loose stone. We made progress as best we might. Quickly, and under cover of my coat, I relit the lantern and hung it close to the water on a bush so that it could be easily seen at a distance by our pursuers. It turned out as I bargained. By the time they had stolen up to the lantern and surrounded it, in the full expectation of catching us red-handed, we were well on our way back to Middleton. Ha 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 ha. Hope you enjoyed that little poaching story of salmon. Now, I'm going to have a little walk about here, and then I'll be off home for my tea. And I'll give you another story another day. So bye-bye for now. I hope you enjoyed them. Bye-bye.